You started laughing like, oh, well.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I shouldn't talk about this book not coming out. But, hey,
hey guys, how are you?
Hello.
How's it going?
What's going on?
Is
Not
this
bad.
fucking? Are you? Why is Chris full screen?
Me, you're full screen.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just the way it's recording right now.
Oh, is it going to speaker view or?
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, that. It looks better that way. I'm recording it. I just started recording it, so it's going to be. It's better that way, I think, because then whoever is talking will get the full screen. It's not all three of us hanging out, you know.
Oh yeah, and having to look nodding and looking like we're listening in an engaged fashion.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. All right. So let's do a little some introductions. I'm recording this so I can edit it later on because that's how I put these things together. So I don't know how much you know about me, but I'm a cartoonist. I have about a dozen graphic novels under my belt.
Show up.
I have nominations, Ignatz Award. I won the Worst Comics Award, which is called a Dinky. So yeah, I've been around.
No, what's a dinky?
Yeah, what's that for?
I'll show you this award. It's really fucking.
Could you do that? Yeah, that's fantastic. A dinky?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it's like a conversation people have with a guy that they didn't really have a great night with, and he had a dinky.
This is what it looks like. See, it's got like a little Jaime Hernandez.
Oh yeah.
Thing on it, and it was for an issue of Blammo that I did. It's called a Dinky.
That's nice. Why is it called a dinky though? Is that explained, or is that just to be funny?
So it comes from a show in Denver, like the Denver Indie Comics Expo or something. So it's like Dink, and then their award is called a Dinky.
Oh, okay.
So
I like that.
All right, Chris, let's hear about you.
Just some guy. What do I do? I work in film and TV since getting out of college. I write comic books. A lot of it was online, and all of those sites are now dead, which thanks a lot, artists who open online comic sites that go dead. I'm known for a book called Thomas Alsop that came out a couple years ago, which won a couple of awards, and now I've got this weird music book thing that we're doing and a bunch of shit next year.
Cool.
Nice. My name is Vali. I am mostly I spent my whole career in TV, comedy, and movies, and the shows I've worked on are, my first job was on My Name is Earl, then I was on 30 Rock for a bunch of years, and I just finished Modern Family. But I've been a graphic novel fan my whole life, but I just made my first book with a friend of mine and put it out online. Now I'm terrified of that choice based on what I've heard. But I put it out, we made our own site and put it out. So it'll just be us forgetting to pay the domain fee that will cause it to go away. But it's called Genius Animals, and we're putting a new chapter out every week. The last one comes out next week.
Cool.
Congrats, man. That's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's been super fun. It's been fun to make something that I've been a fan of for a really long time.
Wow. Pay your domains, man. There was a day I went online and every single I was like, where did that's gone? And then I went to the other and I was like, and that's gone. Why? Okay. It was like,
how long did it take you to figure? It must have been so relieving when you realized you could just pay the fee and get it all back.
I was never the owner of those sites. I was on a site called Activate, and I was on this other thing called Trip City, and I had a massive online resume of just a ton of comics work, and it all kind of vanished. It all kind of vanished within the same 2-month period, and I was just sort of like, all right, anonymity. Here we go. I guess we'll just go forward with print.
Yeah, I remember Trip City. That was a good website.
I enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun working on that. I was with Dean Haspiel. It was Dean Haspiel's idea, but it was very much Seth Kushner's, who has passed away for a couple of years now. It was really his hands that put that whole thing together. Seth was a lovely guy, and of course Jeffrey Burant as well. The four of us fought a lot over that site, but it was a solid site, man.
Yeah. That's cool. Who is Vali? Who's the artist on your comic?
He's an artist named Jun-Pierre Shiozawa, and he's primarily a painting teacher. We actually met because my wife did a semester in art school in college, and he was a student there, and then he became a teacher there. And we had twins a couple of years ago, and when they were 2, he started doing these watercolor workshops where he was doing landscape paintings. And my wife was like, when was the last time we just looked at something beautiful for an hour? So wouldn't this be so relaxing and great? So we convinced our parents to come. It was in Galway, Ireland. We've never been to Ireland before. And I painted in watercolors in high school. Like, it's not like I knew what to do, but I went, and June was a really great teacher, and we became friends then. And I saw something he did for October last year, and I was like, let's try and do something together. And it kind of came together. So we kind of met in a random way, and then a comics project came out of it.
How long have you guys been working on the comic?
It was an idea I had about 10 years ago when I was on 30 Rock, and my wife was living in India, and our hours were terrible. We worked till like 10 p.m. on early nights and 2 a.m. on late nights. And I was already married. So when work ended, I was like, well, what's there to do now? So I would go home and I would want to write something. And I was like, well, I just want to write something that's really fun and almost seems unproducible as a movie. And maybe I can use it as a spec that I could get other work off of and just have fun. So I wrote this kind of big idea that was pretty crazy and unshootable. And people would ask me, like, do you want to make it an animated movie? And I was like, no, I think for the vibe of it, it needs to feel like it's Earth, like these weird things could be happening in real world. And they're like, well, we're not giving you $70 million to make this. But as I started to think about it, I realized, like, oh, with an animated movie, I think of it as a cartoon. But with comics, for whatever reason, like, even though it's a drawing, I think of it, that's just the medium by which this story about a real person is being told, especially if it is the tone of it is rooted in reality. So I started to wonder, like, I wonder if that could be the terminal form of this project. Like, what if we made it a graphic novel and it would feel like maybe, like in The Matrix, the coolest part of The Matrix is it's like, oh, could this really be the explanation for our life? Like, there is a Matrix out there. Like, that's when that movie, interacting with that movie is fun. Yeah. And to me, and why it's different from Star Wars, when you're like, well, I know I've never seen, a person covered in carpet. Like, that's not at all something I'm supposed to think is real. But so I was fascinated with it on an almost academic level at first, as in what different storytelling possibilities there were.
Yeah, it's fun. Chris, because he's like sitting on a film set all the time, he has all this extra time to just like read books and research scripts for like his graphic novels.
Extra time.
Yeah.
It's all this extra time that I'm having there. Yeah, sure.
Well, isn't it just sitting around most of the time?
Not at all. Not what I do. I've been doing a lot of the technical acting, stand-in, motion capture work for people for years. The biggest names, and kind of like when I got to, I guess when people realized that despite my look, you could count on me in life to do things. I've done this for Ed Norton, James Franco, but my favorite and truly like the nicest guy ever. I worked on 2 films with Hugh Jackman as his tech actor. I did The Greatest Showman, and just recently, well, not recently anymore, Bad Education, which they're all up for Emmys for. Nice. And I'm, at least in those jobs, I have a bit of a photographic memory, so I'm off book for all of it, and it's at least for his stuff I've had to go through, minus the dancing, pretty much every scene was me, and then he makes it look better.
So wait, are you like the guy in a green spandex suit with
I have
ping-pong
not
balls?
no I've not done that stuff. I've done I have stood in the middle of the big top while like 40 other dancers are spinning around me, and I've done the dance numbers poorly while, carrying out a pivotal point of the plot. I just recently spent the last 8 months of my life prior to COVID at Silver Cup, where you were filming 30 Rock, on Prodigal Son, a Fox show, where I was just doing the same position for Lou Diamond Phillips, despite the fact that I'm a Polish Italian guy and he's Filipino, but that's cool. That's all right.
That's
too.
cool. That sounds
Lou,
fun.
Lou, if you see this, hope you're doing well.
My experience of Silver Cup is it's an old bread factory, and it's
Yep.
mostly a building for rats that
Yes.
we get to sometimes participate in their economy.
You are not wrong. And what's really wild about that spot is when it was Silver Cup bread, my grandfather, Sal Morono, was one of the bread bakers there. So
Oh, nice.
what's kind of funny, I always do the same thing when I enter a new job there. Oh, I'm on this. I'm going to be on this for a couple weeks, couple months, whatever. I always I stop and I touch the same part, like the same spot, the same like 3 bricks. And I kind of go, like I whisper to Sal, I'm like, we're still blue collar. I walk through the door and do my thing. Like, it hasn't changed too much in 2 generations, man. I'm sorry.
Another thing I loved about that spot was when I worked there, there was a strip club nearby, and the name of the strip club was Mixed Emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's right behind it on 21st Street.
Still there?
Yeah, they changed the name. It's not Mixed Emotions anymore. Why do I
love
know
going
this?
Right at it.
At lunch, I used to just try to run away from everybody, and I would go sit in the back of the stage and be watching whatever was happening there. What a weird scene, man. I mean, what a weird scene that place.
Do you guys keep like regular scheduled hours of like work? Like, do you go like, I'm gonna write now? Like, if you're writing and stuff, do you think like, because for example, my partner Amy, when she goes to work, I take advantage of that time. I have like these hours alone, and I better take advantage of this and try and get as much stuff done as I possibly can.
I've got 2 versions of that. Yes. But when I am doing like I would love to say 9 to 5, but really when I'm doing the 12-hour days on set, I give myself a bit of a goal every week to try to get through. I've been able to get through about 30 pages a week of script that I'm working on while I'm on set. And
whoa, you would write 30 pages a week while on set?
Yeah, or edit. It depends. not showing off. Something's very wrong with me. But I would, I'm there, and if 12-hour day, I really should only be used for about 5 or 6 of that. 5, 4. The more you're using me, the less things that are right that you're doing, because you should be filming somebody else. And if I'm just hanging out on camera for like, oh, this was really weird, like something's wrong somewhere over in the producer's tent. With that said, I on that last job I was on, I was working through this Grateful Dead book a lot, and I was doing a lot of the research there, and my department knew what I was doing, and they were, we had this whole text chain, like Lifeline support, where I would go to, murder number episode, whatever room of blood. And I'd sit on a chair and I'd have the Grateful Dead books out, or the biographies, and be building the script or whatnot. And then I'd be getting like 7 texts from my entire department, like, come now. And I was notorious for like running into the police station and like throwing, like, it looked like I was like, studying a college course, and throwing it on a background actor's desk at who's dressed as a, police detective. They're like, okay, hold this. And then everybody, by the second month, everyone was looking at me like, yes, just go, just go. But
this sort of Serpico character cop who was super into the Grateful Dead.
Really, yeah, seriously, it was a totally weird.
Got a hippie cop here. Yeah.
In my home life, when I'm not on set, it's a much different way of writing and processing. And like, I feel like whenever I'm at this desk, it's like this beautiful treat. And strangely, I'm slower here than I am outside, because I feel like I have all this time to fuck off, is what ends up happening. Like, ooh, what's on the news? Oh my gosh, should I watch that other episode of Watchmen? Should I? Yeah. And that starts to meander into, I'm also notorious for, like, if I'm on a train, I have an iPad out and I'm looking at something I'm writing. If I'm in transit waiting for somebody, I pull out my iPad mini. So I have a really weird process of just constantly trying to get a little bit more, or reading what I did, and I always say sanding it down or raking the leaves away, and just edit.
Yeah, it's like I describe it as like sculpting for me, because I just kind of like go, this is the story, and I just like go forward, and I'm writing and drawing it at the same time. And then at a certain point, depending on how long the story is going to be, I have to kind of look at everything I've done, figure out what the fucking story actually is, and then chop out all the stuff that's like unnecessary, and kind of like lift up what was important about the whole thing in the beginning. So like the book I'm working on now, it's like I just kind of was like learning about Joseph Smith, because it's a book about the Mormon religion. I was like learning about Joseph Smith and writing and drawing as I was learning. But now I'm at the point where I know the full story. Now I'm going back to the very beginning and like rewriting and redrawing stuff, and I know what characters are going to be more important at the end. So I'm going to try and boost them a little bit more, and make sure that I flesh out what their whole journey is going to be and stuff like that. But it's
fascinating.
Yeah, if you're the artist, it takes a lot of time.
So when your first draft is not just a script, your first draft is art with the script.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a book. You do your first draft is a book.
Yeah. So I have, I'm sure I have 100 pages right now in my file there, just deleted pages that I found a better solution for, or I, just decided not to use at all.
And do you mind if I ask like 4 million questions about this? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
So, because I feel like in my world, the processes are so separate, right? Like we'll break the story, and I write an outline, and everyone else knows what I'm up to, but no one really starts prepping the rest of it. And then we write a script, and we rewrite a script, and then everyone is sort of they're ahead of what's going on, and then you start to put it together. And because of that, I think that's sort of trained how I think. Now, are you saying that you process how you want to tell make your book via drawing it as well? I mean, do you ever feel like, wow?
Well, I don't. That's like a different way of working than I do. Because I'm the artist on it, and the story I'm telling is my own. Sometimes, unless I'm working with Chris, like I'm figuring it all out. I'm living in this thing as it's being created. So so I don't really know exactly what the future is going to hold necessarily. I have like an idea. I brought like one of my notebooks for something I'm doing right now, which is just like this is probably the closest I can do. It's a short story, so this is just like a list of events that need to happen. So then I'll take this, and then I'll start like working on like, okay, well, what is like her son? Like, let's just draw like what like a dumb teenager would look like these days, So I'll get something like that, Like, I'll do these like really kind of like quick sketches of like what I want things to look like. Let's see. That's an old man. Just like drawing. She's going to be like a sort of a Wisconsin like housewife, kind of lady. So I was like,
I love that band. The Wisconsin Housewives. It's a great stuff.
Yeah. So like she's got like right here, like she's got like, I don't know if I can see what I'm posting, but she has like a sweater on that says Winnie the Pooh. Because like if you go to like the middle of America, like everybody's wearing those kind of like just like jersey sweaters that you get like at Disney World or something like that. They'll have like Mickey Mouse on it or whatever. It's just about comfort, So that's just like a little visual note to remind myself, like, this is the kind of person I'm trying to kind of conjure up. So when I finish the graphic novel I'm working on now, that story will be more fully fleshed out in my head, and I think I'll be able to just jump in and shape it more accurately,
And how much do you guys think how much of a feel do you have for the ending when you guys start?
Usually I know the ending. A lot of times I don't start until I know how it's going to end, which is interesting. I'm also a little backwards. I was just talking about this with Noah. I loathe writing treatments. I always say I'm bad at it, and I revert to being my 16-year-old self who's late with a paper. I call it the book report to my friends. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm writing a book report right now. And they're like, oh, I won't see you for a few days. I don't know what it is. It's a whole physical, mental push for me to get the treatment out. I'd much rather play in the story. And I think that comes partly from, it comes partly from physical storytelling, doing acting myself in things. I like to kind of get into it and immerse myself in it. I'm I never send a finished draft where I haven't sat there and kind of spoken out all the dialogue first while I've done my read through too. I'm not sitting here acting out all the parts, but I am reading it out loud. And does this work? Does it sound right? Do people sound like this? Do I hear me in it? Let me get rid of that. This isn't about me. I'm trying to do something else. Like I try to kill my own ego in it and see if that just wash all of that away when I'm doing it. It's strange. It's a backwards way of doing it. Eventually, a lot of times for my own personal work, not quite like these music books or this music book that we just did. For my own stuff, I tend to just start the story as scenes and ideas come to me, and I build this thing I call a skeleton draft where, it's there. No one should read this. It's a disaster. I tend to work in Final Draft as far as a script writing program goes. I really love it. Hey, Final Draft, I'll take a 50% off for that. No, but I color code what sucks, what doesn't, where I need work and stuff, and just sort of play in that where I get to a finished product where I'm actually trying to pitch it or something like that. Something like that.
That's interesting.
It's just the way it's been working for me at this point. And, you want to start off and see, like, you started on page 20 and like you're done today and you at least got to page 23 or something like that, instead of constantly going back to what has to happen. A lot of times it's like, again, for my personal work, my weird magic and sci-fi shit that I write, it's like, what feels right, and is it funny? Should it be? I kind of enjoy getting lost in that. It's really just another version of me from when I was a kid, just now as an adult, trying to put my ADD of not paying attention and daydreaming to work.
Well, what kind of notes do you guys have to give to your artists? Like, have you ever been like, this is what this character looks like, and then they come back to with something that's not at all how you would have wanted, but you either don't want to tell them or it's better
with Pele Schmidt, who I did the Thomas Alsop series with. We had a Dropbox folder of so many other folders with every character, and I kind of just dumped a million pictures in it of what I thought these people should look like, actors, whatever I could find that kind of felt like the tone. And then, he saw that and went off the reservation, and a lot of times it was better. And like I've said this to you, and I've said this in other interviews, like with if your artist wants to do something more than you thought it should look like, go for it, because they have to sit there for however many hours it takes them to do a page looking at this thing. And if it's something they're like, I don't believe in it so much, I think it should have been this. I just think it's better for everybody's, mental state making this, that they're all equally invested in the creation process of it. Something like that.
Yeah. I'd be interested. I feel like my experience would be very different from your guys's, because I spend most of my career working in these rooms that are 10 different people, and there's a showrunner, but everyone starts to like feed into the show, and then of course like there's a director and all of that stuff. And I just come off making my first pilot when I started this book, and I was kind of blown away by how the end product existed in some space like between my head, the lead actor's head, and the director's head, and it was way more interesting than the thing that I came up with first, because I felt like it was a lot more textured, because they built on what I had and we built on what each other had. So not knowing anything, me and June kind of just decided that we'd never done this before. We had a super iterative process, and we kind of just went back and forth again and again and again. And I think we were nice about it, but until we both were like, yes, we never moved on until both of us liked something. And it never really took that long. And I can't really tell. It seems like if I wrote that down as advice to give somebody, it would be a disaster, but I don't know why, even though we hadn't worked before, it worked well. But have you ever had a situation when you guys thought, oh man, this is really, we're going off in a wrong direction here and I need to pull back, and it's a hard conversation to have?
Not a hard conversation, but yes. There's been times I'm like, nah, this doesn't work for a character's look, and I'll come back with, maybe more of this or that. Sometimes with directions, unless it's a plot point that must be there for something that's coming later, I'm about to say, I'll put my foot down, and I'm not putting my foot down. I'll say something like, yeah, no, we can't do that there because we need to see the thing, because we need the thing later, whatever this plot element is that moves the story forward. A lot of times I will defer to my artist. We've had the conversation, we've done the prep work, we both know the full script, we know where it's going. So if they're looking at something that's on page, whatever, and they think they could show it better, do it. Show me, prove me wrong. I love it. I love being proven wrong in that moment, because again, it is a 50-50 thing. I look at this as like, you're both sharing, I'm the writer and I'm the co-director. The artist is the DP and the co-director. He's setting the scene, he's setting the world, he's setting the lights. We don't have any ADs to put the background in, but he's setting the entire universe, and we're both trying to sit in those director's chairs to show that story. So if and I were put on this book together, our last book here, and kind of learned it as we went in my own projects. If we have both chosen each other to do this and commit to this period of time where we're gonna, become far too many texts going back and forth. What do you think? What do you think? In the middle of the night about stuff, then there's a reason I believe that you could do this anyway. So I'm going to believe that you could do this. And I defer to that. I mean, again, working in film and TV, nothing ever gets done by one person. It might be one person's vision, but there's an entire crew of 70 other people there that are just like making sure the collar is right on the shirt. It's the same thing in comics. Like, you just have to rely on your partner to some degree.
I mean, for me, since I do everything myself on most of my books, the only thing I can relate this to is when I turn the book over to the publisher to basically design and produce as a graphic novel. And sometimes I'll get a design and they'll say, here's the cover idea. And I'm just like, oh, fuck. No, please. Like, can we do any, like I remember Fonte Bukowski, I always work with Keely McCarthy, the designer at Fantagraphics. She's the one that I always team up with, because she kind of understands what I'm going for. So she did all the Fonte Bukowski book designs, and the last one, she tried to do a photo cover where she found some guy who looked like Fonte Bukowski and had like a photo of him. And she wanted to do like like Bret Easton Ellis, American Psycho, like the photo cover kind of thing, I was just like, like, I love you, but we can't. Please, I don't want you to be mad at me, but I just cannot do this. It does not look like a graphic novel at all, please. And that was really uncomfortable. So I get that sometimes, like the designs will come back and I'm like, all right, now I have to be the asshole. Like, can we not do this? Can we change that lettering or something? Like,
that's really funny. I do think that collected book, that cover is so awesome. That's one of my favorite collection covers that I've seen. Like, yeah,
she's great. She did that. I mean, Keely McCarthy, she's the best. Yeah, definitely. And the book I'm working on now, I'm actually kind of trying to figure out if I can get her to freelance at, because Abrams is putting out the next book. And I'm like, can I get her to come over from Fantagraphics just for this one specific book? Like, I wonder if they're going to.
Oh, that would be rad.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think the thing that I would do the most pushback was, I would get the pages back and I'd be like, oh, why isn't this funny? Is this me? Did I write a bad joke, or are we not getting it right? And it would be, because I never worked with timing, like comic timing in comics before. Like, normally you're on stage and you can figure out what's the easy secret way for me to give a line reading, or ask for a different line reading, or you're in editing. But sometimes I just don't know. And I'll say like, why isn't this funny? And June, to his credit, would almost always figure it out. And often I had a collection of just things on my iPhone of, I think there's a couple from Fonte Bukowski actually, of just like, oh, here's the timing of a joke. Like, this is a long beat. This is a good way to have someone like cut somebody else off and have that and the joke way. Like things that I never really would think about as I was reading as a fan, because you just kind of get it and you would go through it. I realized, oh, I haven't built up this toolkit, and I would try and basically steal that from people who I thought were funny in comics.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because, like, so when I started working for Mad Magazine, they had just seen my comics around, which were not really set up punchline, like joke thing. Like it was just like mostly like it was uncomfortable situations that were funny. Like that was how I was using humor in my comics, and they kind of had to like train me to be like, no, that's not how we do it here. Like you lead the reader along and make them think that they're smarter than you. And then at the end, at the last panel, that's when you twist it on them. And you know what I mean? And that's the surprise. That's the Mad style of humor. And it took a while to really get my brain to work like that, but it is the best. Like when you're working on a page and you know that it's funny, like when it surprises you, as somebody who just like created this thing. That's like, it's like, oh shit, that's good. Yeah, that was like my training, because because right now, like I'm compiling like a book of the early issues of my comic series Blammo together, and reading that stuff, it's like all comics that I did when I was in my early 20s. So the humor is all, like I was living in Denver, and I remember I was really afraid. It was like the first big city I lived in, even though Denver was not a big city. So I was just kind of like scared all the time. And I can see that in my comics. Like it's always about like me at a bus stop and like somebody is trying to sell me Doritos out of a trash bag. Something, it's just like uncomfortable situations was like, that's where my humor was. So it's interesting to see like how that's changed and into Fonte Bukowski, which is kind of more classical setup.
How well did you two know each other before you collaborated on the Dead book?
Not at all.
Not at all. We actually met at New York Comic Con at the I guess last year's New York Comic Con at Z2's actually I think it was like their first Comic Con panel ever, and it was funny. My uncle and my aunt were there, who I had not seen in months and months and months, and I had just turned around and they were like, "Hey." I'm like, I see my Uncle Jim. I'm like, what the fuck? What are you doing here? How did you get to, why are you in this building? This is a terrible place. And then and like 5 minutes into that conversation, Noah comes and taps me on the shoulder. And he's like, hi, I'm Noah. I was like, ah! And I was like, I know you guys. I got to go talk to this guy. We've been like email buddies. Like, we had never met before. I knew of Noah's work, and Josh had put the Grateful Dead Origins book together. He was a massive fan of Noah's, and B, he thought that I was crazy enough to do all the research that was required for this project, which he was right. I guess I was able to do that, and it was interesting as we kind of got to know each other through making it. That said, I've never had a relationship in comics like this yet, where I was put on a project with someone and got to know them as the project grew and became a book. It was interesting. It was kind of
it could have been really uncomfortable, couldn't it?
We could have hated each other. I mean, there was one thing I said to Noah, because I was like, oh wow, yeah, Noah, yeah, that's cool. That's really great. And I was like, right on, Josh. And I went on like your Facebook page or something. I was looking at pictures, and you were sporting the most Tom Selleck mustache that you could.
It's coming back. It's coming back.
I could see that. Now, and when I had stood in on I did the tech acting for James Franco on the first season of The Deuce, where I had to grow that horrific porn stash he had. I don't know if I had to, but I did it, And I'm half Polish and I'm half Italian, and I had no idea that I could do this because I never grew facial hair in my life prior to that. And I remember saying to Josh Franco, I was like, well, at least like, we could do all the cons as like the Mustache Brothers or something like that. And, you know,
Now, I need to defend myself because I grew this mustache because I was starting to tell stories that were autobiographical, and it's like I'm going bald, and I just so I'd just be drawing myself as like a peach blob, like they just like, the most ridiculous fucking thing. And so I was like, I need something. So I was like, I'll just grow out a mustache, and then I started drawing myself with a mustache, and it became really recognizable to people in comics. So they were just like, I was like, fuck it, this is like my thing, I guess. Like and even if I don't have a mustache, I'll still draw myself with it. Because that's just how people recognize me now. That's what happens, you know.
That's really funny that you had to give yourself.
I had to.
Your look.
I needed something.
If we ever get out of COVID and get to see human beings again, you and I have to go do a Mustache Brothers signing spree. I'm just.
And how long have both of you guys been sort of afflicted with, Grateful Dead mania? Like, how deep does the sickness go in you two?
I'm new to the community, the Deadhead community.
Oh,
I'm new to it.
I know them from I played in a band in my 20s and early 30s, I was in a psych band in New York called Swinger 8 with these two wonderful lunatics, Ozzy Martinez and Chris Medrano. We had a problem of sometimes just playing 2 songs per show. And one of those songs was a 20-minute song. So there were some Grateful Dead comparisons that happened just because of the spacey jam band aspect of what they did, and really the drugs that we were on, and looping delay pedals after I probably should not have smoked that much pot before we got on stage, and so I people would be like, man, that was like, I want to see the Dead, and I'm like, what does that mean? And I got into trying to figure out what that mean. That said, I never in my life would have thought that I would have been able to teach a course on the Grateful Dead after kind of immersing myself in the research that I immersed myself in to do this book. It was that was real, man. That was real.
Yeah.
That was something I didn't expect to have to just sort of. I read every band member's biography. I read every ancillary thing I could. I watched hundreds of hours of concert footage and interviews and everything to get their cadence down. Again, I look forward to when I go gray and I start teaching, my course at NYU on the Grateful Dead, if they'll have me.
Yeah, I mean, in defense, they didn't hire me because I was a Grateful Dead fan. They hired me like for my drawing style. They just wanted some kind of like 1960s underground comic style from me.
Yeah,
that's my defense. So like I don't hate the Dead, and like I certainly listened to a lot of their music while I was drawing the book, but I didn't know anything about them. It was an education for me doing that book.
And did you grow to? Because I'll admit, I don't even know what I feel about the Grateful Dead, but I think I'm very into them, but not even really. I don't even know. But I'm interested if you're new to them. How what's your take on them? Did you like it? I mean, I guess you have to say. I should ask a question that you can't lie about.
Well, what about you? Do you would you listen? Would you turn it off if it was on the radio and you're like in a car?
I would say not long ago, yes. Then that 6-part documentary came on, and I thought that made such an amazing case for Jerry being a major American artist. And I've been a Dylan fan my whole life, and I know that he wanted to join the Dead. And that part of his career always baffled me, because I thought, like, I personally don't like too much music in my music, and that's part of the reason I love Dylan. And then the Dead has it's all music a lot of the times, and like it's almost hard to pay attention to Robert Hunter. But I've slowly, because so many people I know and respect and get into it, I've started to be like, oh man, well, these lyrics are great. Like, this is a fantastic song, and I didn't like Silvio for years, and now with Robert Hunter wrote, and Dylan obviously loves because he plays so many times.
Yeah.
And I've kind of now, I'm like, I guess I'm a Grateful Dead fan. Like,
Yeah.
this is a thing that just happened to me, and I didn't even notice it just by studying it, I guess. And I was kind of wondering if this happened to everybody.
It's interesting because it's like a two-prong answer for me. I knew some of the music, not like I know it now.
There's no shortage of material.
No, I have a problem where, and it is a problem, where anything I'm writing, if there is something in it to research, I don't become an expert on it, but I research the fuck out of it to the point where I could have like conversations with people in the field. And I feel like as a writer, if you're writing something and there's something in it that you're not so sure of, by the end of your script, you should be pretty sure of it. You should know what you're talking about because there's going to be somebody in that field that you're writing about that knows that shit 100%. And if you're on it, they're going to see it. The same way that if there's something that's really important to you that you then see in fiction that you're like, well, that's not quite right, you're going to be like about the final project that you're watching. So within my research of this band, I started kind of getting a little, like, it was just really interesting how, you know, year by year, decade by decade, this traveling circus of guys just sort of were there for every pivotal point of baby boomer 20th century America, to the point where we said this in another podcast, another one of these that we did recently, where it was like, you know, they really are the history of America, at least of the last 20th, you know, the late 20th century, because it was that generation. It was the 60s generation. It was all of these beats that were happening. And here are a bunch of guys that are like, in Bob Weir's case, he's the youngest member. And he's alive through like every, you know, 68 and, you know, Nixon and everything that happens. These guys are there, and they sort of, just from a historical standpoint, kind of are parallel with whatever the American experience is. You know, you think of an American band, you think, oh, Bruce Springsteen, this guy, his butt on the cover with the American flag and the handkerchief hanging out of it. You know, there he is. He's the, yeah. But really, here's this group of dudes that, like, they brought their kids. Yeah, fans would go, and then fans would get married, and their kids would go, and then like their kids would go, and it becomes something else. It's not, and as that generation, which is the subculture, becomes the culture, becomes our parents, becomes now in their later years, like, that isn't a subculture, that is the culture. You know, that is a version of rock and roll, of history. So I got into that. I got into like the minutia of researching all that, because it wasn't just like, I'm researching this band of hippies. It was really like, here's a group of guys that are here through all of it, right? And there's deaths, and there's high points, and there's drug addiction, and there's low points. And it was very interesting just from sort of a historic view. Now, secondarily, like, I recently saw one of those shakedown stream videos that they're doing on YouTube, where our editor, David Lemieux, is one of the hosts of that. And it was the John Mayer episode. And he was saying it was interesting for him as an artist to not be playing for 100% of the crowd 100% of the time. He was only ever playing for 60% of the crowd, because everybody had their own version of the Grateful Dead that they were there for. They weren't there for all 10 songs. They were there for maybe 4 or 6 of them. And so that's that kind of, I wasn't thinking that while writing this book at all. This is post the book being done that this video came out. And I was sort of like, aha. And I don't know why that exactly spoke to me, but there are my Grateful Dead songs in the Grateful Dead. It's not every album. It's not every song, but that kind of led me into an understanding of, I guess, deadheads and the culture that I wasn't really looking at before. That it's it's pieces and parts for everybody. And those pieces and parts are just, I mean, that's kind of life. You don't like 100% of anything that you're doing or seeing any part of the time. I think that's my answer. How's that?
Well, let me just throw in that I really love Dylan and the Dead. I know a lot of people shit on that. I love that. That record is awesome. And like I kind of hope, we don't know if we're going to do any more of the volumes of the Grateful Dead book, but I would love to do that era and get to draw Bob Dylan, because I was a huge, in fact, I drink coffee because of Bob Dylan, because when I was a teenager, I was reading his biography called Down the Highway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was so immersed in that. And there was the whole coffee.
Is that Howard Sounds?
I believe so, yeah. I can't remember.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, and there was the whole era of like the coffee houses and stuff like that, and I just thought that was so cool. And I just like, there was a Starbucks like across the road from my apartment, and I just started going over there and getting coffee, and I hated it so much. I just like, I powered my way through it because I wanted to be like cool like that, you know? And eventually, like now, every single morning, it's like the first thing I do is brew coffee. It all starts with Bob Dylan, you know?
Yeah, how much of our personalities are just affectations that's like sort of gotten baked in, or things we started doing as jokes that now we just do normally all the time?
Oh yeah,
it's really a good question.
That would the Dylan and the Dead stuff in that book is really fascinating.
Yeah. He
like
wanted to see his backing band. Just like, what the fuck?
I know. And how Lesh stopped him from being in the band, but then later they toured together.
Yeah. They do that whole run together. It's such a weird. I mean, and then there's that question as well. Then you have, hi, I'm Bob Dylan. Everyone knows who Bob Dylan is, right? And so he's way into his career at that point. What about the freedom of these guys just sort of like, yeah, we're playing a song here, and it's a 3-minute song that we're going to make for 15 minutes here, just wherever it goes. Why did that grab him? And why was he just like, fuck it, I want to do this. I don't want to, I'm done. I'm done being Bob Dylan. I want to be, it's just interesting.
Well, he did everything, man. I mean, he was a Jew playing Christian music, you know?
And the insinuation in that book is Dylan was into it because he was drunk all the time and lost.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, but that may have been some editorializing on the writer's part.
Yeah, that's right.
A little bit right there. Probably a little bit to make it a little spicy.
Yeah.
Is the Bob Dylan Chronicles, is he still going to do that? Is he going to do like a book 2 of his autobiography?
The rumors are always where they hated writing that first book so much that I think he signed a 3-book deal, and then he had a lawyer try to get out of the other 2 books, saying that it wasn't a memoir, it was a book of essays. It's been like 15 years now.
That's fantastic, man. That's fantastic.
Did you read, was it Tarantula, his like collection of poetry? Is that what it's called?
Yes, there is a book called Tarantula. I have not read it.
Yeah, I've heard it's pretty bad. I haven't read it either.
Never read it. I
always figuring out the edges of someone's obsession. And I got to like Tarantula, and I'm like, okay, that's my line. I'm not gonna read Tarantula here.
Yeah, me too. And I mostly, I like to go and watch his press conferences on YouTube, where he's just being an asshole. That's like the best, most satisfying thing to watch. He's just fucking with people the whole time. Yeah. Is there a Dylan graphic novel or not? Do you guys know about it? Did they ever do that?
I don't know of one.
No, I don't know of one either.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
I feel like Noah should be frantically emailing somebody right now.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah. Hey, Josh, go get Dylan.
Yeah, let me get Z2 on the phone.
Yeah, really.
Only do gospel era. That's your
yes.
requirement.
Yes. Well, that's the thing about writing is like if you're going to do a biography, a lot of times what people do is they just take like a specific era of somebody famous's life and just go like, I'll just make a story out of this. And that seems like you can get pretty deep doing that. But I'm such an idiot. Like with the book I'm working on now, I'm like, I'm going to do the entire life of Joseph Smith. And I was like, and I'm going to do it in 250 pages. And now I'm like in 300 something pages into it. Like, still have like 10 years left to write. I'm like, oh, God damn it. I had to like write to my editor, like, I'm so sorry, man. I don't know why I thought I could do this. Like,
He's not even Mormon yet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how do you, when you pick a character like him, when there's been so much written about him, how do you decide, like, what did you decide your hook was? What was your angle going in?
Well, my angle is that it's a non-partial graphic novel. Like I'm not a follower. Like I'm not anti-Mormon and I'm not Mormon. So I'm just telling it like straightforward. I'm just going to illustrate the things that happen. I'm reading books that are written by detractors and books that were written by the church. And I'm just trying to figure out what the real story is and figure out a way if I can balance it so that somebody from the church can read it and like it, but somebody who hates Mormons will read it and like it. You know, that's how it'll be. I'll know I've made a successful book. But it's very tricky because how do you, if you're going to do that, then all of a sudden the problem is how do I portray the magical things he said happened to him and not seem like I'm an author who believes it or thinks it's bullshit.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's been the trickiest thing. So I've done like a few different versions of each thing, and I think the way that I'm going to do it is just have everything be shown as secondhand accounts. You know, like the first thing where like when the angel arrives in his bedroom at night, and I'm not going to show that as he said it happened. I'm going to have his dad explaining to his mother what their son said happened, and just do it through that instead. And that's going to differentiate my storytelling.
Oh, interesting. Sort of the gospel approach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
the book of Noah here.
Yeah.
Now, do you think is there anything implicit in that you're saying? Because we know are you cutting away from Joseph Smith at that point? Like,
oh yeah.
Do I as a reader know? Well, Noah could have stayed in this scene, but he chose not to. I mean, is there content in that where Noah's not sure himself, or he doesn't believe this in the fact that you're cutting away?
I don't mind if people are curious about what I believe when they're reading it. In fact, that's better if they go, I don't really know what his opinion is about this stuff. But the thing is, there's like a lot of characters in the book that I will cut to their storyline and follow them for a while. So I don't cut away necessarily at the moment that like something supposedly happened. There is one thing though in the book, which is when him and the three witnesses went and prayed in the woods, and then like an angel appeared and actually showed them all the golden plates, they say, for them to actually see. And that I did as a version of somebody saying it happened, and then I did it as a version of it actually happening. And I showed them to my partner, Amy, to read and see what she thought of it. And she actually thinks that it's better to just have this moment of, because you know you're reading all these things and people are saying this is what happened, and then all of a sudden you get this moment where it's actually happening for you, the reader. So you, the reader, are like another witness in that moment, and then it never happens again. Then you never see all the other magical things are all then again just told through secondhand accounts. And I think I'm going to leave it like that.
Wow, having one thing be shown seems pretty rad. Just one moment. That.
And I achieve it all through like blue line work. So like it's somebody's telling a story and then the drawings of the things happening, everything's in color except for the visualizations of things that happen supposedly. That's all just blue line work, black and white, or no, not colored. And then, so then all of a sudden you just have a fully colored page of an angel showing these golden plates to the three witnesses. I think will be kind of jarring and will get people to really think a lot about if it happened or not, you know.
I need to admit this. The first time I ever heard about that with the plates and the angel and all that was on Ancient Aliens.
Are you kidding me? Really?
100%. A couple of years ago, I was like watching an Ancient Aliens episode and they had something about this and I was like, what the fuck is this kind of a thing? And that's sort of how I started looking into what that was. I had no idea what, I'm a New York kid.
Well, that's where it started, you know, upstate New York.
Right. There you go. It's starting out.
There's something for everyone in this book.
I just loved that. I really loved that the dude with the crazy hair on Ancient Aliens
Oh yeah.
is my focal point.
Well, you know what's weird? What this? So I'm kind of like I'm going to say I'm about 75% of the way done on this book, but the last 25% is fucking crazy because like the church is built. You know, the members have all been persecuted and moved from different settlements around the country, and now at this point they're kind of like aggressive towards their persecutors. They're building their own army in Illinois, the Nauvoo Legion, who is like the LDS like militia.
Oh yeah, there was like a Brother Muzone character, right? Like,
yeah.
Wasn't there like a Mormon assassin, like a famously good one?
Yeah.
Is he part of that crew?
Yeah, I'm gonna put him in there, and I have like this whole thing where they go to Washington D.C. like and they talk to Martin Van Buren, and they're like, you got to help us. Like people are fucking with us all the time. Like Missouri stole all of our property and murdered like a lot of us. Like do something for us. And Martin Van Buren told Joseph Smith like, I'm not getting involved in that. That's a states' rights thing. Like that, you guys are on your own. Like I'm not. It has nothing to do with me.
Wow.
Yeah, and so they had to go back, and then that's when they petitioned the governor of Illinois to allow them to have their own militia to defend themselves.
Wow. What was the name? What was the name of the assassin guy?
Now it's slipping my mind. I have to look through my notes.
It doesn't seem like a states' rights thing if you say they're murdering a bunch of us.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
that doesn't seem really fair, Martin Van Buren.
Well, they had this whole land disagreement. Like Mormons started going to Missouri and buying up like all the land, and then the people in Missouri were like, all of these Latter-day Saints they're gonna become like a powerful voting bloc. Like we got to get these people out of here.
Interesting.
And so they started just terrorizing them. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. So then after that, like then the Joseph Smith and his brother and the leaders of the church become Masons, and they build their own Masonic lodge in their town that they built. And then all the Masonic rituals get enveloped into the Latter-day Saints rituals. So I had to show all that stuff. Like that's when like the magic underwear stuff comes in, and then Joseph starts really going hard on like the celestial marriages thing and marrying like all these different women at the same time. So yeah, the last part of the book just gets really dramatic, and that's when by that point everybody is so sick of this guy that when they finally get him in prison, everybody just comes over there and kills him. Like they just couldn't wait to get rid of him.
Wow. Oh, that's the end of Joseph.
Yeah, because so what happened was there was like a newspaper that wrote an account of like, here's what this church is doing. Like this guy is marrying all these women and they're trying to own all this land. Like they're really threatened by these people. So this newspaper account comes out, and then Joseph gets his Nauvoo Legion like to go over there and destroy that newspaper office and destroy the press. But you can't do that; that's illegal. So they get him. They go after him for that. He goes to jail, and then a mob comes, and they just let the mob into the jail, and they kill him.
That's fucked up, man. What a great and terrible.
It's crazy. And I traveled around while I was researching this book. Like I went to the jail where he was killed in Nauvoo, Illinois, or in Carthage, and then I went to Nauvoo, which was the settlement that they built there. I went to upstate New York.
Did you say Nauvoo?
Nauvoo.
Sorry, that's Star Wars. Okay.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, upstate New York. I stood like in his childhood home where he says the spirit appeared, like next to the bed and stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I climbed up the hill where he said he dug up the golden plates. Like it's amazing. Like I'm really looking forward to seeing what people think about this book when it comes out, because it might be the first book I've ever done that actually gets pressed.
Now, is this your personal background?
Yeah, I was raised in the church, but I was kind of pulled out by my mother after my parents got divorced, and she lost her faith, and I was still young enough that she got me out of the church and kind of deprogrammed me. So,
and is there any part of this book that has been you figuring out how you feel about the church, or has it been any therapy, or did you have a point of view going in that you feel like you stuck with?
well, that was kind of the whole reason, was like, I'm going to go into this process so that I can research this thing, because if I was just going to research it for my own knowledge, it wouldn't really stick in my dumb brain. Like, I have to draw this, you know, and I have to kind of live in it as I'm working on it, and then through that experience, I'll know it. Like, I'll actually retain some of it. So that was kind of the whole purpose of the project, and it was all about, like, I didn't even know what this thing was. Like, when I turned 30, I was like reflecting on my own life and my own lack of faith and stuff, and I was like, well, maybe faith was something that was robbed from me. Maybe that's something I should have. Huh. So I started thinking a lot about, like, well, what faith is there in my life? And that was it. So wanting to know about that was kind of the whole purpose of becoming interested, or the whole reason I got interested in the church again.
I like that sentence, was faith robbed from me.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't my choice to leave the church. It was my mom. So, like, maybe my mom was wrong. Maybe I was pulled out of something that maybe I'm supposed to be Latter-day Saint. I don't know, you know. But I know at this point, you know, just from researching it, I think it's a pretty amazing American story. But I don't believe in it as a faith. You know,
Are you in the book yourself at all?
I wrote like an introduction that kind of explained everything I just said, but then I'm not going to put it in there. I think instead I'm going to do an introduction that explains what the church is and how big it is at this point in this day, and then explain, like, well, this is where it came from. You know, that's what this book is, and I think that will be better for foreign sales. I just think that's a stronger beginning, because it's just like, this is the church you all know, and here's where it came from, you know?
It sends a copy to Mitt Romney regardless.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was like, man, that'd be awesome if Mitt Romney was running for president when this book came out. Like, I would be like, it's like all of a sudden all these newspapers would be like writing about my graphic novel. I would totally get all this press from that.
It could happen.
Give him time. Yeah, give him time.
Yeah. Well, is your book going to be in print? Like, do you have a publisher for it?
So we started this process with a publisher, a small publisher. June lives in Nice, France, and he met somebody at this con called Thought Bubble in Leeds, England.
Oh yeah, great.
We met some people there, and we were pretty far down the process of going with one of them. But then the pandemic happened, and we were like, well, we don't even know when anything is going to come out. Like, even famous graphic novelists are having their books all pushed, and nobody knows who we are. How are we even going to promote it? And we were kind of sitting around going crazy, and we just thought, like, well, maybe let's put it online for free. Number one, everyone else is sitting around, and we would like some stuff to do, and put it out a chapter at a time. Because it's also crazy making to have this finished product and have it sitting on a shelf where no one can look at it.
Right.
We kind of talked ourselves into, like, on a sunbeam, you know, she did it. She put it out there, and then people seem to do that sometimes, and then it doesn't seem to eat into enthusiasm for putting the book out later. So I think we probably will put it out in print eventually, but for now, we're pretty psyched at the response that we've had so far. And I think a lot of our friends who are not, you know, a lot of my friends are in the world of comedy and TV, who don't necessarily go to, you know, secret headquarters in Silver Lake, like a specialty bookstore, to pick up a comic book, and we're at home and they're able to just go to the website. And I feel we've been pretty happy with how many people we think may have checked it out that aren't already big graphic novel fans. So
yeah,
we're sort of figuring it out as we go along, which has been kind of how this entire process has run.
Yeah. Do you have ideas for another comic?
We're talking about it right now, but I don't have anything at this moment. Like,
come on, man, you gotta get on it. Let's do it.
What are you doing? Why are you talking to us? Get off this.
Yeah.
I'm working on a TV show, and you always are more interested in the thing that you're not working on right now. So as I'm writing that pilot script, I'm like, you know, well, we can shoot all of this. I know. Like, what's the fun in that? Like, why don't we make something?
Right.
What is are you allowed to talk about what the pilot is?
It's not out yet, but so I started working. My first TV job was My Name Is Earl, which was a single camera show. Like when I grew up, I loved TV comedy, and it was all in front of a studio audience, right? Like I loved Letterman, I loved Saturday Night Live, I loved Seinfeld, News Radio. All those shows were so funny. And by the time I got to LA and became a TV writer, we stopped doing those shows that are in front of a TV audience. Like they became single camera shows, which were, the world was way bigger, and you can go and shoot outside, and you're not necessarily in a living room the whole time. And I've spent my whole career on shows like that now. I was on from there to 30 Rock, from there 30 Rock to Modern Family, and I loved those jobs. But lately I've been trying to figure out, like, I wonder, does no one make those other shows anymore because it's a tired format and we'll never like them again? Or is it possible to write a fun version of them? And that would be something that me and my friends write, like, true old school, like 8-scene sitcom. Is it a fun way to do that? Like, I think you watched the first season of Cheers, and they didn't leave the bar for the entire first season.
Seriously, they never left the bar. Like they added in the pool area by the bathrooms in like season 4, where the pool table was. You realize that? Like that was the other set they did. They never left that.
And it's so kind of and I, having watched all of those things, and I had the same reaction you did. Like I never even really noticed that. Why? How did I possibly love these stories that took place in one enclosed place and I wanted to go there every week? And the guy I'm writing the pilot with is my former boss from Modern Family. His name is Chris Lloyd, and he ran Frasier for years. And I would ask him about this, and he said, like, well, the key is you need to make these big characters that you don't mind just hanging out with. Like, think of all those guys in Cheers. They were such big, fun characters that if Norm came in and had a plan, and you could just see on his face which way the plan went, like the audience is gonna like it, and you don't necessarily have to go to his office and see him try and fail at the plan. Like, and you would like to see, it's more like a hangout show in a lot of ways, where you're spending time with friends, which is so not how I have ever worked in my career of making things. It's a lot of how I worked in my career of consuming things. It's been sort of interesting to write like that so far. So I'm having a good time with it. We'll find out if anyone else has a good time with it sometime soon.
Yeah, you were the editor of the Harvard Lampoon?
Yes, that was one of my gigs in college. Yeah.
That's amazing. I always used to fantasize about, like, if I went to Harvard, I bet I could be a cartoonist for the Harvard Lampoon. Were there cartoonists there when you were working?
Yeah, one of my best friends in the world is this guy named Zach Kanan, who does all these cartoons for the New Yorker. And I don't know if you've ever seen that sketch comedy show on Netflix called I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. Yeah. Zach and Tim created that show. I mean, Zach's the funniest person on this earth, and he was a cartoonist there, and writes fantastically funny cartoons in the New Yorker. Now he was the editor for the New Yorker there, but you would have been, oh my God, you would have been so funny there. We would have killed. We would have killed to have you guys.
Was that in print when you were there? Was that a print magazine, Harvard Lampoon?
It was a print magazine. The reason I did it was I was this kid in rural Pennsylvania, and I wanted to write for Letterman. And I remember before the internet, like you would go to your guidance counselor's office. It would be like Barron's 50 colleges, and there would be like a profile of each college in the book. And I saw in the book, there seems to be a tunnel between the Letterman's writer's room and the Lampoon. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I don't want to be Letterman. I want to write like Will It Float? I want to write I want to write jokes for him going to Rupert's Deli. So I was like, I gotta figure out how to get there and meet other people, because I never even heard of anyone who was a TV writer. I didn't really know how it worked.
Oh man. When I was at the Center for Cartoon Studies, the guy who runs that school is named James Sturm. He's a cartoonist, and he was like, oh, I've got to go to Harvard to do some event. And I was like, dude, can you please bring back a copy of the Harvard Lampoon, man? I really want to see what it looks like. He's like, yeah, all right, I'll do that. And then he came back, and I was like, did you get a copy of the magazine? He's like, what? What are you?
It probably saved you because the magazine is made by 18-year-olds. It's terrible. It's so bad. It's comedians at their most confident and least skilled.
Yeah, but it's got such an amazing
Fantastic.
history, though, right? Like if you did you watch the National Lampoon documentary?
The one on yeah.
Yeah. Like those guys all came from Harvard Lampoon, so it's like
Yeah.
when I watched that documentary, I was like, God damn, this is so cool. These guys are just like making this like hysterical magazine that like you could only see like at this school in this like little spot.
The reason you can't see it elsewhere is they sometimes talk about putting it online, and everyone is like, no, we have good careers right now.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
It's going well. I think we're funny. Under no circumstances should they be able to find the stuff that we thought was funny when we were figuring out what comedy is. Like the best thing about it is it's like a con for people who like similar things when you're 18. So I would go to this building and hang out with other people who like comedy and cartoons and weird stuff, and I got to like learn from them and spend all my time with them. It'd be like if your most fun set of colleagues you got to hang out with a lot for 4 years during college. That's the best thing about it. Our output was just so humiliatingly bad.
How often does it come out? Is it a quarterly?
I think it's supposed to come out 5 times a year, but there's years it doesn't come out at all. It's so embarrassing. I can't stress it enough. It sucks.
Oh, man.
They would all kill to be either of you guys.
Really interesting, yeah.
I don't know about that. I live with.
I am published by Fantagraphics Books, so
that's where I learned about Fantagraphics Books, of people going to Million Year Picnic and coming back and being like, oh my God, like these are the funniest, most interesting brains in the world.
Yeah, Million Year Picnic's a great comic shop.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the other one, I did a signing at. Oh, I shouldn't talk about it. Never mind. I'm not going to say bad things about it. There are a bunch of comic shops there. Yep, it's good times.
Now this is all I can think about.
Yeah. Well, I remember because I went to a community college, and they had like somebody was doing like a poetry zine. I still have it. It's like so crappy. It was called like Obscura. And they had like a little thing pinned up around the community college, like missions for Obscura, an arts and culture poetry zine or whatever. I was like, oh, I got to get in that. And I was like doing all these drawings and stuff. And they're terrible. They published some of my drawings in there. It's so embarrassing. But it's just funny because the community college, it's like you get people in there, they're like in their 40s and stuff. So it's like you try and put together like an arts and culture magazine like from a community college. It's really a wide range of broken people that are like submitting to it,
But Obscuria is also the perfect college zine name. It's like so exactly what you want it to be called.
Yeah.
But I think like when I was putting together the book and we were trying to figure out what to do, I think I saw one of your blog posts where you were just like, there are no shortcuts. You have to go do all of that stuff. You have to go do the most humiliating book signing of your entire life. Yeah. And I remember it hitting me because I was like, this was like 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, this is what I tell people who want to be TV writers all the time. But now when it's happening to me when like 15 years into my career, I'm trying to do something new, I suddenly was like, oh, now I forgot that the thing that I tell everybody else, I have to go do myself now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
I remember doing a signing at Forbidden Planet for the second volume of Thomas Alsop when it came out, and it was on the same night that Dan Slott was doing a signing.
Oh.
So I took a picture from across the street at this line that was just like down past, like up to Union Square, past like the movie theater and whatnot. And I was just like, signing tonight. And like in parentheses, I was like, so is Dan Slott, He was a wonderful guy and a gentleman. But mind you, he had like nonstop people coming through, and I was sitting there like,
yeah,
this sucks.
But yeah, that's like, it's such a horrible part of it all. Oh man.
As I was starting to start this process, I was like, okay, I read that, and I'm like, okay, Vali, like, this is different. This is not your main career. You should be ready. You should be humble, because there should be some humiliations during this. And it was like that. I was like, okay, well, I'm not nobody. How much humiliation does one man have to take in this process? Like, immediately you're like, I can't take it anymore.
Dude, on election night of 2012, Fantagraphics set up a book signing for me. So I was sitting there signing my book. It was in Portland, Oregon at Floating World, that comic shop, and nobody was there. Everybody's at home watching their TV to see what the election results are going to be.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, and the guy who's running the bookstore is sitting there like with his like little his laptop on, just like watching it. Nobody's paying attention. I was just sitting with the big stacks of my book. It was so humiliating. And then like afterwards, I just like went to the bar across the street, and like everybody, like, it was like Obama won again. It was like really exciting and stuff, but I was just like, I'm such a loser.
There's this Simpsons writer named George Meyer, and his great line, he has a great line about Hollywood, but I think it's like all arts, which is on to the next humiliation.
Yes.
Which is, I feel like, what the mindset
great.
you have to make it in any creative career.
Well, man, when I first started out doing comics, one of the things I met this guy, John Porcellino, who's like a legendary like indie comics, like small press guy. And he just started taking me, he would do these tours around the country, like in his car, like a band. And I started going with him on these tours. And then we'd be gone for like a month, driving all around the country. And he'd have all these signings set up at different comic shops all around the country. And we drive there, like not even sleeping at night, just fucking hurrying up. All the backseat just piled up with boxes of our comics. And we would get there, man. I remember one time we pulled up in this comic shop in New Mexico, and what the hell was that, dude?
my battery is about to run out. Sorry.
Oh shit! Do you want to plug in? Are you all right?
I have 10%, so I should be fine for a while.
All right. Yeah. So we got there, and we had to sleep in the car outside of the comic shop. And there's a big mural of the Hulk, like fighting some other, like Thor or something, on the side. And we're like indie cartoonists, and we're like, oh, this is going to be a terrible signing. And we went and looked in the window of the shop, and there wasn't even like a flyer or anything hanging in the window saying that we were coming. And we slept in the car, and there's drunk frat boys like walking by the car all night, like looking in at us. And the morning.
So you had to wait there. You had to wait like 12 hours, like knowing what was going to happen.
Yes, just sleeping in the car, you know. And we get inside, and we're like, hey, we're the artists, and they're like, who's it? Like, we're the artists. We're doing a signing here, and the guy's like, oh, I gotta go talk to my manager. I don't know. And he goes into the back, and the manager, you can just hear them kind of like talking, and then he comes out with like a card table with like folding legs, and he's like opens it up and puts it down, and he's like, you guys can just sit here. And so we just like sat down with our little comics in front of us, and I just sat there and like stared at like a wall of Todd McFarlane toys for like 5 hours. It's like, and then I think we had sold like a couple comics or whatever during that event, and then when we were trying to leave, the comic shop owner goes, hey, boys, are you forgetting something? I mean, the deal was he wanted 50% of our sales. It's like, so we had to give him our money.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. It's just fucking awful, man. All that, but it's weird. You know, speaking of Bob Dylan, like we were both really big Bob Dylan fans, and I remember we'd just be driving through the American desert. There's like nothing around, just like big mountains or whatever. And that Bob Dylan song, it was just like, all the wild horses in the sun. How am I supposed to get any riding done or whatever? You know, it's like it was on like a self-portrait, that album.
Yeah.
He doesn't even sing. It's like just his backup singers, and they just say that over and over and over again, and the song's over.
Yeah.
I always think of that. It's like attached to this memory of just like driving through the middle of the desert, you know. It was
that seems kind of perfect for that song. Like, that song, I don't think looms very large in a lot of people's Dylan memories.
No.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just there's so much like brutality attached to like I want to be an alternative cartoonist, and I don't even know what that's gonna look like when I get there.
Right.
Because I don't know what the reward is supposed to be. Like what is it? Like I'm gonna get to a point where maybe some editors are gonna offer me some work. Like I don't know. I don't know why you choose to do it. Or
It's
what?
why it's why you do any version of the arts. I mean, you need some sort of a thick skin. I go on, I go on like 90 auditions before I land, a one-line role in something where I'm like, here's your folder, Jane. And that's like, well, back to one. I guess I'll go back to one on the next audition here. 90 from now, I'll get shot or something like that. The same thing with comics. You just sort of have to. It's so strange because it's people who are somewhat sensitive and somewhat introverted in all the arts to some degree, and then you're going out with this thing. You're like, hi, I made this, and you got, you're staring at Todd McFarlane's voice.
Like, this is my pain and my sorrow.
Well, it's
we don't really like it.
Yeah, and you're sitting there staring at a wall.
That's great. We don't like your pain. We don't like your sorrow.
Could it be more painful or more sorrowful?
That's the problem with doing like autobiographical work at all. It's like when you see the reviews on Goodreads, it's like they're not just judging some fiction you wrote, they're judging your life. And it's like, oh, this sucks. This guy's a whiny asshole or whatever. Like, kill these people. What the fuck?
Yeah. I remember I did a pilot like that where the main character was basically based on me, and the notes would always be like, he seems so weak. And I'm like, you're talking to him.
Do I look weak to you? Do you see my tears? Are these weak tears?
Because he's me, yes, I'm going to make the changes and not push back. But it's hurtful.
He's not weak, okay? He just had a hard day. Fuck you. You don't know.
That's solid.
All right, man. Well, let's say goodbye. Let's end this since your battery is running low, and I've taken enough of your time, I think.
This was really fun, Cyrus.
Okay, right on then.
Thanks for.
I can't wait. So when is the Grateful Dead book has been pushed again, right? When's it coming out now?
Versions of there's some COVID related issues with the deluxe edition. I don't understand all of it, but I know that that's been pushed. The soft cover's out, but it looks like it's sold out on Amazon already, which is if that's real. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that means it's sold out in a week. So I look forward to that.
That's why, because I went to the store and I asked for it, and they were like, no, this is not coming for a while.
Yeah, it's weird. I had people writing on Facebook like, I heard you have this book out, but I cannot find a copy of it.
It's been interesting. I'm gonna hope everything is just that, I mean, this was supposed to come out on 4/20/20.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that was the original date on purpose, I think. And it's been pushed 5 months, right? I like next year as well. I have a few releases coming out in Bookland, and I'm just sort of like, yeah, they're gonna come out next year. Are we gonna be okay as a nation? I think that things are going with a certain kind of sway right now that isn't so decimal point in every regard.
I know. My editor we just pushed the Joseph Smith book to spring 2022. And I'm like, what the fuck is that going to look like? What is the world going to be like in spring 2022?
Yeah, that seems insane. It's just heads in jars or something. Like, what as long as there's eyes, that'll be fine.
Yeah. As long as there's still trees that we can chop down to make this book.
More paper trees. So in theory, it's out. And maybe in actuality it's out as well in some places. Yeah.
I mean, what is out really? That's the question.
Yeah, that's right.
Where
if a book comes out and nobody reads it, did it ever come out?
Fair enough. That's a really good question. Does anyone go into a Barnes and Nobles anymore to get a book, or is it just digital sales at this point? There's so many questions about just the portals with which you buy everything from going forward. I mean, we do have a very strange man in the White House right now who's saying things like, it is how it is. So nightmare times. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I'm going to stop recording now. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having us, sir.
Yeah.
Right on. Let's send an email to each other, whatever. I'll send you a copy of it if you don't have it, and I'll also send you my other Thomas Alsop series.